In this video, we're going to be looking at the canvas and the status fields. So we're going to be looking at how to change the status field from active or inactive or any other status reason that we want to create. So let's check on this. I have on the screen a presentation that I use several times, and just to understand what are the status fields and what type of values do we have to use. So number one, let's go to the resources, and this is actually the location where you can find documentation on the status fields from previous versions of Dynamics 365. 95% of them will actually be applicable to Dynamics 365 CE, and then also the Common Data Services. So one of the things that we have to understand is the state. It's only two values, 0 for active and 1 for inactive. And the status reason in most of the cases and most of the entities is 1 for active and 2 for inactive. Okay. So on my case, for my demo that I'm going to be showing you, I actually created different values for custom options that I want to create. Like on my case, I added the in progress, and that's the number that actually was assigned for me when I created that value. And then cancel incomplete. As you can see, it's not a single digit number. It's actually kind of like an option set number, a very long number. And that's to identify, what are the out of the box values and what are the custom values that we're just creating. Let's check out the demo now. Okay, let's check out the demo. So, okay, we're in the demo now. This is actually the same application that I've been using on previous scenarios. Again, I'm using the service request, and I'm using in this time the CDS connector. So let me show you that I'm using the CDS connector. So, these are all the connections that I have available. I'm mainly using the service request, but in this situation, what we're going to see is not the service request. It's going to be the reason, the status reason, and the status fields for that entity. So how do I find that? So let me go back to the data. So this is actually data. Let's find the entity for the service request. And most of the time you will see a short list of fields that are actually available that you just created. But if you click on this link right here, you will be able to actually see all the rest of the fields. And some of them are going to be the status and the status reason. So if we select the status and then we look at the status, we only have two values, active and inactive. Okay. And there's no way to actually make changes on this one. So these are actually, out of the box, they're locked down. And at that point, the same thing with let me cancel this one. The same thing with the status reason. So we go to the options. And on my case, because I already make the changes for this one, I can actually see that all the options that I have available on mine. And even if you notice, I make the change for the active to say active-new. So let's see, how can we get to that? So if we go back to all the entities, and then we go to solutions, so you will see that I created a solution. Mine is called a request solution. And if I go here and then edit, I can see that, all the fields and all the entities and all the things that I actually added on my solution. But if we go to the ellipses right here, and then we can go switch to classic, and switch to classic is going to be like, the old interface that most of the time all, Dynamics 365 developers know, and, they know how to use it and how to, customize and exchange. So let's go and see that one. And as you can see, that one is going to actually show up in here. And that interface is going to allow me to go to the entity, but also to modify the fields, and then from the fields actually add more values into the status reason. So as soon as I actually finish loading, and it's actually coming, right here, service request, and let me make the screen a little bit bigger so we can see better this one. Okay. So now we're in the fields, and in the fields, I actually get all the metadata for all the fields. If we start scrolling down, we will find the status reason. This is the status reason. We modify that one, and as you can see, we have a double pair or key pair values for the status reasons depending on the status. So the status reasons that we have right now are for the active. So if I click on this one or select it, and then click on edit, I can make the changes right here and then have all the changes applied for that one. The same thing with in progress. And in progress, what I did is actually create the add. And then when I edit, you will see that actually the value is, this being long number. If I try to delete it, it's not possible. It's actually locked down. So you cannot change that number. So that's actually one of the things that you have to understand when you create new custom status reasons for that entity. For inactive, initially I just had inactive, and if we look at it, it's actually number 2. But when I created the cancel, it continued with the big log number, like the option sets. And the same thing with the completed. Okay. So one of the things that the model-driven or even Dynamics 365 allow is actually when you have active records, you can make changes to that record. But when the record is inactive or completed or canceled in this situation, you cannot make any more changes to that record. Only can change the status fields. So that's one of the things that I want to show you right now on my application. One of the things that I did is, and my computer is making too much noise, so let's move it a little bit. Okay, here it is. So on the application, one of the things that I did is actually I'm presenting what type of values do I have for the status reason and for the status. Okay, so the status reason is active and new, and then this one is active, and most of the time it doesn't show the 0, but we know it's a 0. The same thing, now I have, several colors for different status on my application, and I can show you the code for that. And it's actually on the gallery template. And then, as you can see, I have different colors. And also I'm filtering on the application. Right now, I don't have anything. That means that I'm actually selecting all the active, but I'm gonna say, show me everything. Show me all the records, active and inactive. So now you will see that I have different other colors for inactive records. So this one is completed. And as you can see, I have it as a color yellow. And somewhere around here, yeah, here it is. I have a cancel one. So I changed the color for that one. So let's see the code for that on how do I change the colors. So it's not here. It's actually on the template. Oh, sorry, it's not there. So it's going to be on the browse for the edit for the selection. And then right here, we go to the template field. And then on the template field, let me formatted the text. So I created a switch statement, a switch function. And then I say, if the status label, the status code label, it's completed, then put a yellow color. If it is canceled, light coral. If it is inactive, light gray. If it is in progress, light green. So as you can see, I can change the colors depending on the status. Another thing that I did is I created a type of command bar on one of my forms. And this one, what it's actually showing me is the status of this record. So one of the things that I can see right away is like I created these icons right here. And then every single one of them has a specific setting. So right now it's identifying that this one is already active or new. And if I click on it, it's going to tell me the record's already active new. So it's not going to do anything. But I can change it now to be in progress. So now it's actually doing the in progress code. And it's running. As you can see now, it's actually changed. So everything is, if it is not that status, the background for the icon is going to be light gray. If it is that status, it's going to be green most of the time. Not most of the time, all the time. Okay, so if I go back, now it's actually green. If I select it again and I say, well, it's now inactive. So we're changing to inactive. And then now, the inactive ones are going to be, these two are going to be red. And now it's inactive. As you can see, change the color to gray. Now let's change it to cancel. So this is the cancel one. And now it's cancel. So now we change the color and then we can say now it's completed. As you can see, it's very simple. I applied those icons and then now there's, the record is actually changed in value to that. Okay. So let's check on the code now. Let's see how that I was able to actually change those values from one state to another. So right now we know that it's actually complete, but if I want to go and see what is the how do I create the connection, how do I create the code for changing the value from any other status to active, this is the code. So I can, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm actually validating. If I already active or new, then I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to just notify that, it's already active or new. So you don't need to change that status again. But if it is not active or new, then I do a patch. And then on the patch, I do the service request. And then I do the finding the record that I'm actually, I'm going to be modifying. In this case, I use the service request ID. And I compare it to the browse gallery, the selected record, and then the service request ID from that point. So pretty much it's actually finding the record. And as you can see, I don't have to, like on option sets, you have to open and close this, the curly brackets for every single statement. On this one, because they are numeric and it's not considered the same as an option set, I just put it on one curly bracket and it works fine. Okay. So that's for, the status code, it's equal to 1, and the state code is equal to 0, meaning that it's active and it's still active, okay? Now let's go for the in progress, and then you will see that the in progress, it only changed one thing. It only changed the big number. So now instead of being 1, now it's this big number. That means that it's in progress. And I do the same thing. I actually check for the code if it is already in progress. I don't have to do anything again. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. Now we're changing from active to inactive. So let's go to the on select. And then right here it is. So the inactive value is number 2 for the status code, and the state code is number 1. Remember, the active is 0 and then inactive is 1 for a state code. Okay, same thing. If it's already inactive, I don't have to change it. If it is not, then I change it again. And then cancel. Cancel. I use again the same big number. Now it's ending on 1. And again, these are actually the ways that you can create or modify the status from one status number to another. On this one, what I'm trying to do is actually say, yes, it's inactive. Now I don't want the application to change the values on any of the fields. I change it to inactive, but it's now complete. In this situation, the application will not be able to change anything, only the status fields. This is very normal and very easy to handle on model-driven applications. On Canvas, you have to default it and actually filter for that. I will also show you how do I do the filtering on my browse gallery, which is actually similar to what I'm doing right here. Okay, so as you can see, very simple way to actually change the code values and how to use the values. One of the things that I recommend you is, put a label and then get the status code value so you can see exactly what the value you're getting from the records. Sometimes some records, if I don't have the code, every record is going to look the same until you start actually having different colors, and now you can see clearly what type of status of the record is at that point. Okay, I hope this helped you to understand the status code and how to change it and how to use it. Later on I'm going to actually explain a lot more into the model driven, how to use the the application, how to use the forms, how to use the views. This one in here is actually I'm emulating a view from a model driven. Okay, hope that helps. See you soon.